This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Your Playbook with Jay Mathis features real conversations about the ever-changing playbook of high achievers in any industry or role. Join me and my guests for unscripted, real-world conversations about what's worked, what hasn't, what they've had to unlearn, and how they adapt when conditions shift. These are candid discussions about pressure, resilience, and the discipline required to stay sharp when the game changes. Honest dialogue, real experience, practical insight you can apply immediately. Welcome to Your Playbook. I'm Jay Mathis, and I'm here today with a couple of friends. I'm very excited about it. As I was thinking about these two guests, Todd and Ricky Thompson, I thought a lot of people are going to know either their face, their name, or their voice, particularly for one of them. And so it's just exciting to get to talk to you guys. Todd, you and I have known each other a number of years. Yes. Ricky and I think we've known who each other were, but never really interacted much throughout the last 10, 20, or 30 years of being in Waco. So I'm just glad we're here together. I get the opportunity to work with a lot of folks over at Alliance Bank, and so you guys do a great job in that. I wanted to start out, and maybe I'll start with you, Ricky. Anybody can go online and find a little bit about Ricky Thompson. There's the Ricky Thompson today, and there's the Ricky Thompson from Gatesville, Texas, who came into Waco, played football for Baylor. We were just talking about how I got to watch you play football from the end zone when I was a kid, and with Neil Jeffrey and all those guys. You went on to play pro football, and I've got to believe, just knowing a couple other guys who have played at that level, that elite level, even college level, playing for a guy like Grant Taft, I think so much who we are today is kind of formed, right, by our experiences of the past. So just give me an idea. I think you're a high-achieving professional, a person, who you are. And now today, of course, you've been doing play-by-play with John Morris for how many years have y'all done
26.
That? 26 years.
Last December was my last game.
It was your last game. You I know you've done 300 games in a row. Did you get over 300?
317.
317 in a row. And so a lot of people are hearing your voice now and going, I know that voice from somewhere. And so we do appreciate all that. But when you go back in time, maybe I think West Texas originally and then to Gatesville, how has that formed you? And think about it this way. Is it because things were already implanted in you and they just were forged, or were there some lessons you learned along the way that made you the high achiever that you are? And I'm going to ask Todd a similar question in a minute.
Yeah, I think, that's funny. Todd and I have talked about that. I think the competitive nature of us individually is just either ingrained or it's not.
Yeah.
I don't think necessarily you can teach yourself to be competitive. You can be a great athlete and still be really good at what you do. But the competitive nature to me is something that's ingrained. That's inside you. It's there. I think what really pushes that, though, is to be involved in team sports. And I think we've talked about this. If we at this point for Alliance Bank can hire somebody that has been in athletics before or just part of a team of some kind, I think it makes a tremendous difference because they're going to know more about working with people. They're going to be more competitive, and it just works. It works better. Yeah. I think that's why he and I get along. We've got really similar natures from small towns. Mine's bigger than his, but both small towns. And just our backgrounds, we laugh about it sometimes. They're just really very, very similar. But, college, that was always a dream. Of course, you never know if that's going to be reality. And NFL, what kid doesn't grow up thinking, that's what I'm going to do someday. Yeah. When you go back and you see the statistics for those or the odds to really get there, then you think, what was I thinking? Yeah. That's not very realistic.
Yeah, the stats are not on your side or anybody's side.
They're not. They're not. So in that regard, I was very, very fortunate to have 7 years in the NFL, play at Baylor, actually was on a championship team in football and a championship team in track. Right, yeah. The last track championship.
Was Coach Hart?
Coach Hart.
He was there?
Bless his heart. We lost him just a few months ago. But that victory in 76 is still the last team championship for Baylor track. So that was big. In fact, we've got a reunion coming up for that. To be a part of that, 4 individual championships in the long jump and then a junior national championship. And just with that, at Baylor, I was so fortunate to have Coach Taft and Coach Hart and Coach Cotton Davidson who allowed me to do both. Yeah. Which was very unusual, and it's even more unusual now than it was then.
It's rare when that happens today.
It's rare, and I was fortunate that I never went through a single down of spring training. Coach Taft was fine with me running track. That was part of me being here, was to do both. And they lived up to that. In fact, I had semi-committed to Texas, and that was my plan, and just had doubts really that they meant it, that I could do both. And I knew between Coach Hart and Coach Taft that they meant what they said, that I was going to get to run track, I was going to get to play football, and they weren't going to interfere with each other. It's hard to do what I did track-wise if you've got to go through 20 practices in spring training.
Well, and I think
just almost impossible.
It is almost impossible. And what's also so rare is that you had two, talk about high-achieving coaches. I mean, you got influenced as a late teen, right, early 20s by two men who steeped in their career, obviously, in their history. That's a huge deal, and just forging you for the years to come.
No question. I'm going to back up with that. I had a coach in high school who I still love and I still talk to, and Coach Moss is 86 now, I think, but came to Gatesville, was his first head coaching job. Happened to be at the time that I'm in high school, was very smart. He moved me from quarterback to receiver, figured out I was not a quarterback, and I'm just so thankful for him. And he was, in that era, a hard-nosed, tough guy who really at the time I was scared of. And I just learned through him really the mental toughness side of it. Just such a competitor, and he's such a good man. He's a Western artist now and really good at it. My house and office are filled with those paintings. No kidding. And I tell him, if any of us would have known when we were in high school that you could paint, you would have never heard the end of it.
That's exactly
and
right.
I said, the other side of that is, no way you would have ever told us.
Right.
But he's just fabulous at it. But then after that, to have the chance to play football for Coach Taft, and not only Coach Taft, but Cotton Davidson.
Oh, yeah.
Cotton was from Gatesville. We were from the same town, went to church with him, watched him through his career with the Raiders. Then he coached with the Raiders, Oakland at the time. And then to have the privilege to play for him too as a receiver when he was my receivers coach, when I watched him growing up. And Coach Taft too. And then Coach Hart, everybody knows he was the premier track coach in the nation at the time. And
it's interesting. I was just listening to another podcast, and someone made the comment that the person who invented the Nike Air shoe, the architect behind that, they were asking about it, and he was talking about his past, all the things he's done, because sometimes it didn't line up with shoe manufacturing or design.
Right.
And he said, no. He said, everything we do in our past, the combination of all those experiences, that makes us who we are now. And it is what it is in our past. And we have those, it's like you have those signposts, those guideposts in your life. And you've mentioned 3 or 4 of yours that shaped you for what you did in the last 40 years of your life in banking, in broadcast. It's a big deal. And so I appreciate you sharing that. I think it's important, as people hear your voice, to have that kind of history. And when I think about Todd, and, Todd, you played, which NFL team were you on? I can't remember. We were talking about NFL. Is that? Oh, no, I'm sorry. I got mixed up on that. No, but Todd.
Well, let's back up. I played for the Redskins, not the Commanders.
Yes, I think.
Can we clarify that?
You can clarify that.
Okay, thank you.
But Todd, did you? So one thing is, and this is on the website at Alliance Bank. I don't know if everybody knows that what I'm about to tell you. It says on Todd's bio that at 7 years old, he was a helper in his family's business. And that's interesting that you said that. I think they skirted around child labor laws and had you out doing stuff. But Todd, when I hear you talk, multiple times you bring up the family business in Wortham. That had to, you talk about something forging you, in experience and hard work. Just go back that far for a minute. What's that like growing up in that environment?
Well, it's not that unusual of a story for Central Texas people, I think, but I grew up in a small HVAC company. I was abused. I tell people, my parents are both gone now. I tell them fondly I was abused as a child. I started working when I was very small, very young, but it formed a lot of the work ethic that you have. And, back, the business has been there, this year will be 70 years. My son and son-in-law still run it. My parents are gone, my brother's gone, but we still have that. But that's unusual for a small business to be that long. But, in the hard times, it's feast and famine. And So you learned a lot, hard, sweaty work. And all that. My father came off the farm, so he was used to hard work. But yeah, it becomes kind of a big part of who you are, and all those things, including, I didn't play at Ricky's level, but football, track. I told him we ran the state track meet in Austin back when the track was around there, and I remember vividly going there as a sophomore, replacing the senior that had left the relay team. And the first thing I did when I walked in, Michael Carter was throwing the shot put, and I threw up on the track because I was so nervous, in a big stadium. I had never been in a place like that. But all the same kind of form who you are. And now it's fun. I had 6 concussions, was a walk-on college player and had 6 concussions and finally quit. So I'm worried about CTE now, all this stuff going on. Some people say I have it now, but those things really do form you, the competitiveness. And we've noticed it. We were competing bankers, and I banked with him for a period of time. But then we noticed some of those things, and it really came to a head. My son went hunting out in his parents' place out in the country, and he came back and said, his parents' dad remind me of his grandparents, my parents.
Oh, wow.
We all think we're very unique.
Yes.
But, Gatesville, Wortham, and the demographics, the time they grew up in. He said, remind me so much of what he called Granny M and Granddad, my parents. I think we really are close to being alike. But we treat business like a game in a good way. But now we don't have, you don't pull hamstrings and don't get concussions. And it's a lot safer game. But it's very much, in competitive, as he said, putting teams together, try to be authentic, all those type of things you learn from really good father. Fortunate to have good parents.
Well, and that hard work for you, for people that don't know, Alliance Bank's here in Waco.
Mm-hmm.
It's a unique bank for a number of reasons. One, you and Eric Sharrow were the ones that kind of put that deal together. I want to remind people, most banks, it's a family or it's owned nationally or something. Community bank, in y'all's case, is owned by over 200 people, I think. Investors from all over.
Yeah, I tell people banking takes a lot of capital, and Waco's an old town, a lot of old family money, old Chisholm Trail town. We're in the Alico building, one of the oldest buildings. But it takes a lot of capital, so it's usually wealthy people that own them, and really good, work for families that own banks, philanthropic, really good people. But we, kind of guess part of that competitiveness, whatever, wanted a chance to put together our own team and do it the way we thought, our team thought we ought to try to do it, and didn't have the money to raise it, and had to go raise it. So I followed a model of a guy that did it in Wichita Falls, and he raised it from over 100 people. And so we went out and raised our first capital raise. We've had 6 or 7 since. Our first capital raised it from over 100 people, and now we're over 250.
Wow.
And the largest one owns about 10%. And after that, it's all small shareholders. It's more like a mutual fund almost.
Yeah.
And we put together a board of people that are there because of who we wanted, what they brought to the table. And so it's a unique model. There may be some other like in Texas, but I've been on a trade association board. There's not many like that, just because it's so capital intensive. But it creates a different organization for sure.
Well, and you brought Ricky on how long ago?
2017.
So
April of 17.
Yeah. You retired from where you were, came on over. There had to be some strategy behind that. I mean, you're a high achiever. You had other people in the bank. Bringing Ricky on had to be enjoyable because you guys get along well. What did that do over the last number of years to leverage his skill along with Scott and Eric and the others? Like what was did you have a strategy behind that, I guess?
Yeah. Fortunately, I guess a good analogy for us old timers would remember, back when the Southwest Conference, it kind of reminded me like the Texas A&M, we came from 2 really good banks, still good banks here. And so after we got together, it's like, well, what were y'all thinking when y'all did this deal? We kind of watch it from afar. We did some business together. Banks can do some business together. But like, what were y'all thinking when y'all did this? Or, it had a different culture, but a lot of it's similar, really good credit cultures, really good service cultures and all that. Yeah. So I guess it's just the idea that you attract talent wherever it comes. Right. And I told him when he, retired from the bank, look, if you ever want to get back in, come see me, and in fact, I guess I can tell people, I met him at a Starbucks on the outside of town because I want people to talk. I said, look, that first week, if you ever get back in bank, say, I think I'm done. I think I'm good. I said, yeah, sometimes it pulls you back in, And then later on, he said, I'm getting the itch. I might want to come back. And so he joined us. And I don't know if I've said it in his presence before. I knew he would be I knew he was a great banker. The thing he talked about, the question was, could he fit in our organization? Because our organization, you got to fit in. You got to be a team player. We don't have silo players. It's just, you know how that works. If you're on a track team and one relay person's running for himself, it's a different deal. I just didn't know if he could fit in or not. But it's the team part he had. Yeah. And I knew it early on because he had been a president of a bigger bank than ours, Right. And he said he'd been there about a month or 2, and he was doing his part. But I remember stopping him in the lobby and said, hey, if you see something broader than what you're doing that you want to participate or tell us, speak up.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I see some things, but I really want to watch for a couple of months before I just jump out there and say some stuff. And that's unusual because most of us bankers think we're the only ones that can ever make a loan, and we think we're the best at everything we do. And I thought that I knew he was going to fit because he's like, hey, I'm more concerned about fitting in the team than me just saying, well, this is what we used to do it over there, and this is what we used to do. So, and it's worked out great like that.
Well, it's interesting when I'm around you, Ricky, the few times I've seen you, you seem very relaxed. You don't seem anxious. And a lot of people in their careers can go through that, like in positions, just everything is tense. I'm curious, do you find this kind of second phase of, post-retirement, coming back in and doing this, is it feel different? Not a slower, like you're not working hard, but have you learned to manage that intensity better, or differently?
A couple of answers to that. I think being out of it for a while was probably a good thing with some perspective gained from that. And then I think, too, because of our prior relationship, in fact, the one thing you didn't mention is Todd actually did bank with me at the other bank. Yeah. So we had known each other, and obviously at that time, two of the bigger banks in Waco, community banks. So we were well aware of each other, had never worked together, but
we had done participations together. Banks will sell overlines.
Yeah.
And banks still in town do that. If they can't lend to any one customer, they'll put together a coalition of banks and do it kind of like insurance companies do. So we knew the culture from each other from our organizations doing that type of work together.
Yeah, and I think I knew, and I've told Todd several times, I think I knew at a point if I did come back that I would want it to be with Todd and Alliance, just for a lot of reasons. We get these feelings internally that we just think that would fit, that would work.
You just know.
Yeah. And I had to think about it. I mean, it was a big change coming back into it, particularly at a new place and not president of the bank and just trying to fit. And that part was difficult for a while. But, it's just this place is such a team atmosphere. I think everybody's headed in the same direction, a lot of different personalities. But when it gets to the end, when you get to the end of the line, everybody's moving in the same direction. We all know where we're headed. We all know what we need to do. We have a lot of fun doing it. And don't get me wrong, we can still get pretty high strung and active and motivated. And we don't like to lose. Yeah. And that was instilled long ago by parents, whatever they may be. My dad will be 93 in March, and he still rides the pasture every day. So I think that's just instilled in us that I don't like to lose at anything. Yeah. Nothing. And that includes board games to my grandkids. We talk noise to each other all the time, particularly my grandson. But I just think that was instilled. But I really, as I look back on it, it was really at the time a blessing for me to get back in it and get back in it with a group that not only I got along with, but they were really smart and were doing some things that I thought I wanted to be a part of and let me fit in. I mean, this wasn't an overnight deal. Sure. I mean, I've been there now 26, so it's 9 years in April. Yeah. So it's hard to believe. All this to get to this point has taken some time, and I don't want to say ups and downs, but just there were periods where everybody had to figure out who's going in what direction and how you fit and where you fit. Yeah. And honestly, I'm not real sure, Todd may disagree, how it really could have worked much better, particularly from my perspective.
Sure. Yeah, to your point, I was thinking about that. He didn't come in as CEO of the bank. It's to carry that football analogy. He came in as kind of a position coach, and he'd been head coach. And so he came in and played a position. Then he moved up to president, and then last year became CEO of the bank. And he earned that. He wasn't knighted that. And I learned that from my previous boss. Like, you need to let people earn their position instead of just being appointed, because the people will follow them differently. Right. And when it came time for those moves to be made, it was just natural as anything. Like, oh yeah, he should be president. Well, he should be CEO of the bank.
I look at you, Todd, and I know you're the executive chairman, and just being around you, I feel like it's opened up your life. Now be chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, but I feel like it's such a benefit for the bank. You are more free to pursue things outside the normal day-to-day of the bank. Yeah. I mean, with Ricky there, with Scott and others, they're in good hands, right? And so what is that like for you now in this, first 6 months to a year of both those roles, both executive chairman there and chairman of the chamber? What excites you right now about the next couple of years? Yeah,
it's interesting because I didn't know either. I had never seen it done before. I was on a trade association board, and a guy in West Texas did this in El Paso. And he moved to executive chair and gave the CEO title to the president. I was like, well, that's kind of interesting. You're still in the bank every day. And then I, with my brilliant research ability, I chat GPT'd it and just, hey, in a community bank our size in Central Texas, what would it mean to do these titles? And it ended up being kind of the blueprint for it put for the board. And it's worked out really well. And I guess, outside of banking, a lot of people don't care that much about banking, but for organizational culture, I guess the thing that makes it work so well is that golden rule really works well in those places in your life. Yeah. The management team, including, Eric Sherrill, who's my partner in putting the bank deal together, he's president of the holding company. He serves as CFO for the bank. But when I went to him, I said, what do you think about this? Because I wouldn't recommend it if you weren't okay with it. He said, no, I think that's the best thing to do. He said, best thing to do. But of our president, CEO, him, myself, when you start talking about that group and even at different levels, it's not just the authority they have, but like if there was anything that they felt like I was concerned about or had an opinion on, they'd come ask. Not that they don't have the authority to do it. Sure. But just that for roles reversed. Like, hey, and it's funny how it works out. We have a $30 million legal lending limit to any one customer. They could make a $30 million loan and they don't have to. I don't lose. Well, I'm just saying they can go through the process. We have executive committee, all this stuff. And I'd be less concerned about that than if they said, hey, we're thinking about changing the colors of the lobby or something silly, but it's important to me, or a cultural thing. Like, hey, a fairness with an employee or something. They've got all the authority in the world, but just like, I care about that. That's what's got to happen in that group to be able to step aside and do that. And the other part of it is, frankly, was just ego. I mean, when it came down to it, I knew it was right. Scott Rogers was at time to be the president of the bank. He needed to be. Ricky needed to be CEO of the bank. And the only thing that kept me from recommending it, because no one asked, they didn't know what the title was. I just felt like that's the only reason, that's the dumbest reason not to do that. Yeah. And so, I talked to the board. I was really disappointed. I thought it was going to be a big deal. So I talked to our board individually. I said, y'all have a meeting about this? And I'm like, no, I'm really, like, no one really cared. I was like, my feelings were so hurt. They're like, you still going to be here? Well, I didn't want shareholders to feel like I was slowing down. I was working just hard. But to your point, it does allow me to not be in every meeting. Not that I had to be there anyway, but I am doing more things outside the bank and more strategically, like stuff we've worked on with organizationally, culturally. We put together a CRM forum group for our commercial bankers inside the bank to mirror groups that I did with I was a part of with our trade association. More strategic type things that I have time to do. I could have done them anyway, but I don't feel like I have to be there just because the title I had.
And you've opened up just the bandwidth of creativity and talk about competitive nature. A lot of people probably think, well, gosh, does that mean he's going to slow down? But because you're automatically, like you guys are saying, it's hardwired in you to go. And so then wherever that is, whether it's chamber or expansion or whatever you want to do.
And to that point, because of my personality, which is a negative because I am so type A and all that, one of my board members, I was selling him so hard. Like, look, I'm not slowing down. I'm going to be here for the shareholders. I'm going to work this hard. He said, don't emphasize that so much where it doesn't mean anything. You bankers, he's on our board. He said, bankers are notorious about having titles. Don't make this change if it's not going to mean anything. And that has resonated with me over and over. Wow. When I want to jump in and do something, I'm like, wait, that's not my job. Ricky or Scott or whomever in our organization, like, I'm talking to this person about that. So y'all okay with it? Or what do you think? Or if Scott Rogers comes in, so Scott, you're president of the bank. What do you want to do? Right. And it was kind of that culture anyway, but Ricky, he knows. And a lot of times what's really fun is I'll walk by and Scott will be in Ricky's office with the door closed and they're talking and I just keep on walking.
Just keep going.
And that's not my nature. My nature is to be, and I know it's small time, but I want to be on the field, in the deal, with the baton all the time. And it's a blessing and a curse.
I think that phrase, it probably relates to both of y'all, that don't make the switch in 2017 to go to Alliance unless it's going to mean something, right? Unless it's going to mean something to your life, to your family, to the bank. Otherwise, you could have done a half a dozen other things, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that's important. Like that's a lesson for all of us, like to go, if you're going to choose to do something, a new job, a new opportunity, nonprofit work, whatever, do it because it's important, because it means something. So I'm curious with you guys, like what is that? What have been some of those lessons you've learned in pursuing, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s that have been sort of that guiding thing? And maybe on the flip side, what if you talk about dropping pride a little bit, right? You had to go, hey, maybe I'm prideful. You humbled yourself and took this other deal. What are some things you've had to let go of, I guess is what I'm saying. Like, an example as you think, like the word resilience means a lot to me. I can just have markers in my life where losses and successes. And so being resilient and wanting my children and grandchildren to go, oh, well, that didn't work out, but he didn't quit. He's going to try something else. And I think there's something to that. But also letting go for me has been the letting go of what I thought I was like, my vision. Maybe it was more like, I think I'm like my dad or I think like somebody, and getting comfortable with who I am and who I'm not. Like getting comfortable in our personalities and who we are and who we're not. So letting go of those. I don't know if that kind of helps, but either way, what do you think?
I don't know if this is exactly where you're headed, but I think with this change and making this decision in 17, I felt like at the time when I did that this was going to be it for me. I mean, this age-wise, this decision that I made in 17 was going to be the last one I was going to make about
career work stuff. Yeah.
That was going to be it.
Yeah.
And I think, fortunately, it's worked. It's worked really well. I thought it would, but I don't think it's just like when we hire someone now. We don't really know if it's going to work until they're there.
Right.
You can interview all you want to, but until they're in the fire with you, you don't know if it's going to work or not. And we've seen it go both ways.
Yeah.
We've seen people exceed what we ever thought they would, and then some, man, how'd we miss that?
Right.
How'd we miss that? But I just think through all of these years of change in our lives, I think we either get to the point now where we feel good where we are and in our skin and we're pleased, or you have a lot of regrets. And I think for me, I knew if I ever came back after we talked the first time that this would probably be where I would do it if they were still in a position where that's something they wanted to do. And I just think this has re-energized me. I mean, I'm a little bit like him, though. If I walk past something, there's something going on, I want to know what it is.
Yeah, you want to be a part of it.
My deal is I'm stopping. I'm going to find out.
Do you find that, do you wonder if that's, I don't think it is, but like, you have to worry that am I being controlling, or do I just enjoy it so much I want to be a part?
Well, I think that's part of it. I don't think it's controlling at all. I think it's more just wanting to know what's going on. And it's not, I mean, I've got every confidence, as Todd does, that Scott Rogers is going to do his job every day, and I don't have to worry about it.
Sure.
Which I don't worry about it, but I still like to know what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, I still like, just like Todd, he likes to be involved. We want to know what's going on, because really, if you go to sleep and you don't know what's going on, you can really get in a mess really quickly.
Well, you start filling in the blanks.
Right. Like, and I don't think it's so much control as it is awareness. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
You just want that awareness. What's going on around me? Part of why I was telling him originally that I really didn't have much comment for the first months, probably nearly a year, when I was in the bank, because I didn't know enough to think maybe what I was going to bring up might have been a little ridiculous or just stupid. I needed to see how things really worked where I was.
Makes sense.
And I think that's all developed, and a lot of things in 9 years have changed. I mean, this is a different bank than it was 9 years ago. It's going to be a different bank 9 years from now.
Yeah, it will.
It better be.
Sure.
And I think that's the goal. And I think the biggest thing in this progression is that there haven't been egos involved. I mean, everybody's got one.
Sure.
I mean, I do. He does. We all have them, and we all want to do well.
Right.
We all want to be perceived as somebody that everybody else thinks knows what they're doing or they do well. But more importantly, in this venture, we want the bank to do well.
Right. That's that common driver.
And in that regard, it's what's it going to take?
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to do. It's just like we opened the bank in Temple, and at the same time, an opportunity comes up to go to Georgetown, and we're talking, I mean, how do we do that?
Right.
And then at the same time, we're saying, how do we not?
How do we not do that? Yeah. And you figure you
How do
get
we
the right
not?
talent, you put it together. And
So
you do it.
we figured it out. We did it. We had 2 buildings going at the same time. Hopefully we never do that again. But we weathered that storm, if you want to call it a storm, to get where we are now. And gosh, do we ever see the fruits of those labors with what's happening in Temple and Georgetown and with the bank? And there's banking's tough. I've told him before, there are a lot more ways in banking to lose money than there are to make it.
Yeah.
There are a lot of ways to lose money.
Yeah.
And we have to be really, really careful. We're highly regulated. But, some of that's fun. Some of it's challenging.
Sure.
And it will aggravate you every now and then. But I think that's because we care.
That's good.
And we are competitive. And we don't like to lose at it, whether it be a regulator or a competing bank or a competing banker. Not that we're not going to get along with them, but we still want to beat them.
Yeah. Good quote. That should be on the moniker there. So when you think about last 30, 40 years of career, what are those things that have kept making you press on? What are things you've let go of? Like you talked about those things earlier, but what about you?
It may be age or just some of those things Ricky talked about. I think for me, the hardest thing, knowing my personality was kind of type A, be involved. I was telling somebody the other day, at 6th grade, I told my wife, we were in 6th grade. She lived in Houston. I lived in Wortham. We didn't live in the same town. Her aunt and uncle lived there. I met her in the 6th grade. I said, we're going to get married one day. In the 6th grade. We've been married 40 years, but we didn't get married till we were 22.
Yeah.
And kids asked at dinner a couple of years ago, they're like, hey, Dad, you told Mom when you were like 12 years old, you're going to marry her. And y'all never lived in the same town until you were 22. We went to different colleges, the whole thing. Mom, when did you know Dad was the right one? And I said, I think about 5 or 6 years ago. She decided, finally won her over that she's the right one. But that kind of personality, there's so little in life that we control. And I felt like for a long part of my life, I could make things happen and I could control things, and you just learn that there's just fewer and fewer things. The older you get, the wiser you just can't control.
You can't.
We don't control much. Think about how vulnerable you are with your kids or your health or whatever. You just can't control much. So trying to give up that, but not giving up on the parts that you are responsible for. Do everything you can about the parts you're responsible for, and then let the other go. And that's been kind of hard for me.
I heard someone say the word, some people talk about I'm controlling. Well, they got to replace it with being a good steward. Like I got to steward. You got to steward the bank. We have to steward our relationships with our kids and grandkids and friends and not control them, right? Not use people. I heard someone say, we use tools, we care about people. Like if you start caring too much about your tools, start using people, that's a problem. It gets it all kind of backwards.
Well, and the way that team thing comes with organizations, I was thinking about too, is, being responsible that you don't, my biggest fear was letting down the other teammate, right? Like you have different positions, and if you do your part and they do their part, it all works. Yeah. Well, I didn't want to be looking at my part. If I don't do my part, it falls apart. And so I think that's a big driver too. It's like, hey, I don't want somebody to look at me and I didn't close that door, close that gate, cover that gap, whatever. And it's just, I don't know if that's part of it's ego and pride, which can be bad, but I think that's a big thing that keeps you motivated and going too. Like, I'm not going to let my family down. I'm not going to let my dad down. I'm not going to let the coach down, whatever that is. And to an extreme, it can be a problem, but to the most part, it makes you a good teammate. And that's different than the person that's more concerned about what's in it for me. We had people that have been good solo players, but they just can't play on our team.
They can't because they haven't been around that environment that expects it. And you talk about going back to working for your dad at 7. Like you learn those at 7 years old. Like close the van door, we're going to work, pick up your tools, whatever they had you do. And it mattered that you did it, right? They've done studies now, I think Harvard did studies on kids who do chores. They just find that kids who grew up doing chores, maybe not huge things, but those kids do better in the workplace. They're more responsible. And so we've got to instill those values. And clearly, y'all had both of those. I want to ask you, Ricky, and then I'll talk about the chamber for a second. We're going to miss you on Beta Football, but you gave us so many great years of doing that. I'm curious, when we make a decision, I think I know why you did it, but what was the intentional reason for stopping now? Your voice is strong. You love the game. I think I have heard before, but what was the intentional reason for that?
Yeah, well, there was one reason for that. I mean, the door was open with John to go as long as I wanted to go. Sure. And I think My health is good, felt good, love the game, love being on the sideline, love being part of it. I'm going to miss it. There's no question.
Yeah.
I've got a grandson that's going to be playing on Friday nights.
Okay.
And we travel some on Fridays, and I'm not going to miss those games.
Yeah.
That's purely and simply the entire reason for doing it.
It's great. It's a great reason.
We'll see how that goes next fall.
Yeah.
It's going to be a change. First time in 26 years. Don't know how well I'll fare in the stands around other fans. Probably not very well.
You may have to go off to the side to watch that game.
I'm probably going to wear earbuds so that I can't hear.
Yeah.
But that's the reason. And that's a 2-year time frame. He's going to be a junior, and that's going to go really fast. I mean, I remember the day he was born, and he's 16 tomorrow.
Wow.
And that's really scary. And I'm just not willing to miss those games. I'm not going to do it.
Then a shout out to John Morris to call you in 2 years and bring you back. That's
No, and the funny thing about that is John and I talked before the year, and I said, this 99% this is what I'm going to do. So he knew it all year long.
Yeah.
We get to Arizona this year, which is game 11 out of 12, and we had not talked about it one time. We're in the line to get food about 10 minutes before we go on the pregame show. And he said, "Are you sure?" And I said, "About what?" He said, "Are you sure that you want to be done? You don't have to. Is that what you want to do?" Or we hadn't even talked about it. And I said, "Yeah, I'm sure."
You're sure.
And he said, "Well, is it okay if we talk about it on the pregame?" I said, "Yeah, sure."
No planning. It just y'all start talking. That's good.
No, that was the first time we had talked about it. First time it had been on the air was pregame at Arizona. And primarily part of why he did that is because they were planning some different things for the last game, which was really cool. I mean, it was a really fun day.
Yeah.
But we didn't mention it. And I guess 26 years of that, I mean, that's not an easy production to talk for 3 or 4 hours about a football game. But we had done it for so long that it was really seamless. I mean, he really knew when I had something to say or not. A lot of the things that we said weren't on the air were probably good. They weren't on the air about different plays. But that just got to be a seamless event. And I know for next year, that's going to be different with John. Had a change last year, obviously, with losing JJ.
Yeah.
That was a shame. That hurt us all. But
you're doing, I think anybody that knows you or knows the situation would go, no, he's doing the right thing. Like, this is intentional. It's a sign of humility. It's a sign of care for your family. And I mean, your grandson will never forget it. I mean, 2 years and I hope he has a great 2 years of football.
Well, frankly, true story. The person most upset about this is my grandson.
Is he really? Okay.
He is. He's grown up with this. He's traveled with us.
Yeah, he's never known any different.
We've gone on private flights instead of the team. So he's been able to travel with us. He's been going since he was 11 or 12 years old.
Wow.
So he's disappointed because he's been at bowl games. He's been on the field. He's been on the field at bowl games.
Yeah.
And not many kids growing up get to do that.
No.
So I said, "Jack, that's fine and well, but you want to look up on Friday and I'm not there?" Yeah. And he said, let me think about it.
Think of that. I think it's awesome. He's going to have you there.
But no,
that's good. That's good stuff.
He'll appreciate that. And it really was not that hard of a decision for me. And I haven't flinched since.
Isn't that interesting in life where you have this priority that he's made for so many? I mean, you have this priority. How many games in a row all those years until you have a different priority?
Yeah.
And everything changes.
It shifts, man. It just, and it is, I said earlier, and we're all, well, I'm not there yet. I'm almost in the fourth quarter of life, the 60 to 80 range, right? If you guys are there, y'all beat me by a couple of years. But it is significant because your priorities do change. I mean, whether it's health changes, kid changes, all these things that happen to us. And Todd, as you move, through this next number of years, and I don't know how long you'll stay involved in chamber, but this year you're the chairman of the chamber board. Give us a sense, not so much details of Waco, what's going to happen, but what excites you most about being able to invest time, knowing you have other people to tend to things about? What's exciting you about leading at the chamber?
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's a good time because I just started that job. Before I get off that, I don't know how many people put that much thought into it, but the real loss for the Baylor fans is going to be in Ricky in that job, and I'm sure they'll find someone to be very good. But he's got two things in that job is going to be hard to replace. One, his football knowledge, pure football knowledge from all of his career, but also the institutional knowledge of Baylor football for 50 years. You can find somebody with one, but they may not have the other. To combine both is going to be hard to do because he knows you go back, he knows all the Baylor history, you can talk about all the players, all the games, all this kind of stuff. But he also has the football knowledge that's hard to replicate too, of reading what's going on. And it's really hard to see from the field too, by the way. When you're on the field, it's different than seeing up in the stands. Absolutely. It's really hard to see. Yeah. So that's going to be a big loss for Baylor fans. Back to your question, I was just having lunch with a guy that just rotated on the board, new guy, and we were talking about this. I said, I was on that board 20 years ago, maybe. I'll stop there, maybe more than 20 years ago. But to see the differences have happened, in the last 20 or 25 years, and he's new. He's a younger guy, like early 30s, and he went to Baylor's, just moved back. And I was telling him how it was compared to then. And the challenges now are so different than what they were now. I mean, not that things were bad, but man, there's so much opportunity, so many things going on. I think it's part of, he's asking, why are you doing this? Well, there's just so much opportunity there that hopefully I've seen some things in different organizations, seen things in that Mike can help, a little bit. But as far as the times are just so good. I mentioned it in that little inaugural speech they get you to do. And, that 275 miles from Dallas to San Antonio is the hottest economic corridor in the country by far.
Yeah,
there's just,
sure.
I mean, if we just get our piece of it, we're going to be fine. And trying to navigate all that goes along with it, there's a lot of components to that, everything from infrastructure and water and environment and culture. Like some of these companies are moving here because we're easy to work with, and that's a cultural thing like we talked about. It can change easily. We're seeing that migrate. Austin's one of the hardest towns in the country to build in because they've had this fast growth and all that goes on, and it starts eaching out. We built in Georgetown, we built in Temple, we built in Waco, and that's a cultural thing. And because of the role in the chamber, it's really kind of the centerpiece. It's not like that in our community. Some places, it's one of our guys in Georgetown is on the city council. Economic development runs through the city there. In Temple, there's an economic development corporation that does most of that. Here, the chamber is really kind of the center for the city, the county. Right. They kind of seed all that to because their staff and the industrial foundation, all that. If you want to have an impact, that's the place to do it. So you're really kind of at the throes of all that, and we get to have communications every quarter with city leaders, just informally, off the record. Here's what we're hearing. Here's what's going on. So I feel like you can have an impact, but it's just good because so many things are going on. I mean, that's downtown. One of these condos sold for what you could have bought the whole block for early in my lending career. Oh, yeah. I'm still having
crazy.
When they loan something down here, I'm the old guy in the corner like, how much are we lending on that in downtown? And like, just be quiet over there, you know? But it's fun to see the changes. I mean, there's just so much opportunity here.
Yeah. Well, I think you're the right person for it. Timing's right for you to do it. So we're glad you're driving that. And thank you for putting me on the board.
And we have the staff at the bank that they don't need me anyway. So I need something to do.
That's what everybody say at the bank. What's his name?
I think they like when I'm gone.
They might. They're just like, we're fine. We're fine. We're doing fine. And you guys went over $1 billion last year. Yeah. And you're ooching up even more and more. So that's awesome. Ooching up. What are you going to say?
I was just going to say, I mean, going back to our relationship and others in the bank too, I think a big part of this is one of the reasons we're successful, I think, is because we have fun. And even outside the bank, and we were laughing on the way over here, we can be pretty abusive to each other, just joking around and having fun. Somebody would hear it and say, those guys, do they not like each other? But, I mean, I think that's part of the fun. And I mean, we can disagree, but then we're going to go to lunch.
Yeah, but that stuff matters,
and it's done.
That stuff matters. I think authenticity is something that people are looking for, and they can tell. And we just had a commercial banker join us in one of our southern markets, and she's really going to be great. I can tell already. And one of the things she said, I mean, think about all the things that she made to make this decision. She's kind of midway in her career, and she said one of the things that caused her to make that decision. She was at like a convention center type event. And she looked across and saw our bank table and our staff, our leadership over there, and they had some customers there. And she saw the rapport between themselves and the camaraderie and the rapport they had with their customers. And she said, I used to have that, and I don't have it anymore, and I wanted it.
Wow.
I'm not saying it's one of the decisions, but that's it just strikes me how important that stuff is, that it's not the cherry on top. That culture, that camaraderie, that authenticity. She said, whatever they had, that's what I wanted. That personal testimony is part of why she chose us versus someplace else. So it's really, really important. Yeah. They don't like it when I say this, I know, but I say it anyway. Most businesses, I think banking too, I mean, it's highly regulated and there's all kinds of ways people are trying to take, our federally insured money, but it's really kind of a commodity. It really is. Banking's a commodity. Most businesses are. We think we're pretty good at it. We got a great staff and all that. But at the end of the day, it's how you do it.
It's how you do it.
That matters to people. We were at an event last week. Rick and I were at a customer event down in Temple, and one of the guys, really seasoned, great customer. And this guy's like Ricky's age or something. He's not like he's some rookie. And he's like, I used to hate to go into my bank. And I said, now I go by y'all's bank. He was very complimentary of the staff. And he said, I go by when I don't even have anything banking to do, just because I like the environment so much. And they're so warm and friendly and welcoming and professional. I just like the feel of it. I go in there. I'm just,
that's huge.
Made us feel great.
It's really
but
big.
people, I guess what I'm saying, and that's great for our staff and great for us. We don't think we're the best in the world, but people are really starving for that. I think people are more connected, electronically, but we say technology is great for servicing relationships, it's not great for building them, And I think it just tells how people are disconnected from people. Well, so if you have an environment where and you've seen it by trying to develop that with our commercial lenders, where they feel comfortable and warm and they can tell,
honestly,
be honest. And
people will watch this just because there's three guys talking.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, they can just do that. I don't think I'll hang around them and whatever that is. So authenticity is a huge deal. We're always going to have technology and all that. I mean, banks got to figure out AI and everybody's got to figure all that stuff out. Yeah. But if you just think AI and technology are going to handle everything, and that's not important, those companies aren't going to make it.
Well, and two, think about this. We talk about this all the time. All the banks have the same products, basically. Yeah. They're all the same.
Governed by all the same rules.
So where does that put you? It comes down to the people and the relationships. He and I laugh about it. It took us a month to figure this out. So we're a little slow coming from these country towns. But we were walking in the bank and our tellers were saying something. We walk in. It took us a month to figure out they were talking to us and saying, welcome back.
Oh.
I mean, they did that on their own. They made the decision to do that. They do it with all the customers, but they were doing it with us too.
The staff.
And we just ignored them because we didn't know they were talking.
We thought they were talking to somebody else.
We didn't know.
Yeah, they were talking to you.
Yeah, we had no clue.
And that was their deal.
It makes them feel
we had nothing to do with it. So
why'd you do that?
Finally we say, hey, I'm sorry. I had no clue you were talking to me. So now I make sure I try to race them. They say, welcome back. And I'll say, I'm back. I'm back. Not that they care.
I asked them, is that part of your training? I mean, we don't have a formal training, but is that part of it? I said, no. One of the customers mentioned that made them feel really good or welcome or something. So we thought, why don't we just do it with everybody? Even like I say, with our staff that's coming out all the time, welcome back. And I said, even if it's disingenuous, I get to a certain age, even if a compliment's disingenuous, just take it.
Yeah.
I had a police officer a while ago call me. I was walking in the building and he was in front of the building and he said, we're just here blocking the fire lane and whatever. And he said, someone called me young man. And I said, man, you just made my day, man. Just calling me young man. Even if it's disingenuous.
I don't mean it, but
I don't care.
Made my day. Yeah. Well, before we go, let me ask this question. I love this question. It's posed to me by a buddy of mine in Houston. And he said, hey, as you think about your life and kind of the course of life, right? I'm kind of stuck on that idea of running my course, right? However many years I get, working, living, so forth. How do you want to be faithful, fruitful, and finish your course well, either in career or in this side of heaven? Like what do you want to be remembered for in being faithful, fruitful, and finishing well? Todd, we'll start with you.
Well, I can tell you what it culminates in. It's a real simple, short story. We bought the bank in Jewett, Texas. It's about a $30 million bank, and one of the owners still there. It's the only bank he ever worked in since he came out of college, and he's like 80-something years old now. And he said after we bought it, he was one of three owners, like I say, and we were trying to entice him to stay and work there, and he did. But he told me, and I tell this story because it has nothing to do with me, but it goes to where you want to end up. He said, y'all weren't the highest bidder for our bank. Ricky's heard me tell this story many times. He said, y'all weren't the highest bidder for our bank. And I said, really? He said, no. This other bank, bigger bank, they offered us more money. And I said, well, why did you sell it to us? He said, oh, because I went to high school with your dad in Teague High School. And so I didn't know you, but I knew your dad. And we care about this bank being in this community. And he said, I told our board that you will do what you say you will do with this bank because I know your dad.
Wow.
And I was like, well, I guarantee you to the extent that I can, I will, now that you told me that story. And I'll tell the story about my character. He didn't know me from Adam.
It reflects on your dad.
And he was just a country boy and went to Teague High School. But he said, I knew, and they have a business over there, like I talked about. He said, but I knew you would do what you said you would do because I knew your dad.
Wow.
So I'm
great.
Like, try to live up to that one.
Yeah, that's good. And your dad lived a fruitful life. Yeah. And,
Lived the best life. Yep.
Finished well.
Yep.
Ricky, what do you think?
A lot of things. You could talk about this for the next hour when you really get down to it. But I think you mentioned that in the Bible it says finish strong. And I think that's what we all would like to do. We all don't get that opportunity, but I think we've been put in positions where we really can finish strong if we do this right. Yeah. And that's not just on the banking side, but that's life in general. I mean, things change, radio careers change, grandkids grow up. But I think, to me, you just want to be perceived as someone that always did their best, that worked really hard, that tried to do it the right way, that was fair and more than generous. And I think I take that back to my dad, who's one of the most unselfish, generous people I've ever known. I mean, he's 93 and he still loves to see his grandkids, great grandkids, get to go do things and on trips, although they can't, for us to go do things. And I just think that's what I want to be as I get older. I want to be able to sit back and for my kids, grandkids, say that they're proud of what they've seen out of me.
Oh, yeah.
And that I finish it strong and go till I can't.
Yeah.
I don't want to stop. I don't want to sit back in a chair and just shrivel up. I want to finish strong and do it the right way.
I like that.
I think Monday night, my wife was leaving town Tuesday, and we got to talking about how, we've been married 40 years. You start having those kind of conversations. She was going back home, visit her parents, and I was like, I said, isn't this crazy? I mean, we're reflecting on some stuff. I said, your parents I was running around on a motorcycle when I was 7th grade. I said, your parents let you jump on my motorcycle. And I carried you all over, police officers didn't care. I didn't have a license. So what were they thinking? It's just a different world. And I told her, I said, you realize I really do about 80% of what I do to make you proud of me.
Wow.
It's just, we did that Monday night.
Yes.
I remember my parents were married like 57 years, and people were like, what's the secret? I said, I think my mom thought my dad was the best man she knew. My dad said he thought my mom was the best person she knew. And they were just giddy about each other to the day they died. It makes you just sick, So we don't say anything special about us. We're just fortunate that our parents, her parents were, high school sweethearts. They modeled that for us. Well, my point of it is you just try to, like you said, you try to finish in such a way you don't ruin whatever respect you've had or earned. Oh, yeah. Just try to finish strong and earn it well. And hopefully people like your kids, they follow what you do, not what you say, especially at this age. So I think that's it. Just try to finish well. And
both you guys had met my dad before over the years. And at his funeral, his number of grandkids before him spoke at his funeral. And that was the most impactful, to watch these 20-something year old grandchildren.
They've been watching.
Talk about the pop. And just authentic language. And it's funny. Not a single one of them said anything about awards he won with Prudential or anything. They don't care anything about that. It was everything invested in their life. And so.
You say that. My daughter spoke at her grandmother, my wife's mother's funeral. And I listened to her, and she did a great job. She really did a great job. And I'm thinking, I wonder when it's my time if my kids and grandkids can say that about me.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good lofty goal.
Yeah, you want that to happen.
Yeah.
Well, I've preached the eulogy at my mom, my dad, and my brother's funeral. Told my other brother, I go, who's going to do mine? So we'll see how that goes. Well, hey, thank you to these guys. I appreciate y'all so much. And this was a lot of fun. I never know quite where some of the podcast is going, but I like to sit down with people who not only think are high achievers in business, but just in life. And both of you guys have reflected that well. So thanks for doing that. It was enjoyable.
Appreciate you.
Thanks a lot.
Appreciate
And
you
I
guys.
just want to say too here, we have a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Oh, y'all do.
we do.
We're
Your Playbook is powered by Sandler, a global provider of sales and leadership methodology backed by data-driven solutions designed for measurable, continued success. Check out Sandler.com. And a big shout out to Rogue Media Network.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.